Okay, we've got Sean Stitt from Huntress on the podcast, and this is really designed for an update to our existing clients and going out to all of our socials as well. But today's really an update as to what's happening in the security marketplace. We did an update earlier in the week to our clients because we're seeing a huge uptick in regards to some really quite significant and concerning attacks on Australian businesses that is otherwise coming through a particular method, which we'll get to, which is referred to as an AITM attack, and we're an industry that loves acronyms. So, Sean, thanks for coming on. You're the expert. We implement your products at Huntress.
Yep.
We've had a very long relationship with the organisation and with you guys, and we're very lucky to have you guys in our wheelhouse and as part of our platform of product and what have you. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your position at Huntress.
Yeah, so I'm Sean. I am a senior sales engineer here at Huntress. So spend a lot of time working with people like Tom, making sure that we've got the right tools in place, that you guys are really protected. A little bit of background, I've worked for some of the biggest companies in the world. So PricewaterhouseCoopers, Toyota. I've worked at MSPs, and now I'm in kind of the vendor space, making sure that clients and MSPs are really protected, because we're just finding that what's happening right now is a lot of cyber criminals are actually using the SMB space to test out their tools before they go to the enterprise space. So it's a real problem that we're seeing, that
it's a hunting ground.
Yeah, we need the tools in there and the expertise in there to make sure that SMBs are protected, because they are definitely under attack these days.
Yeah, for sure. So I think before we get started to what we're seeing in the current threat landscape and what is pertinent, just run us through, because all of our managed clients already utilise the founding Huntress product, which is the managed detection and response product, and most people, and fair enough, would say, is that antivirus? And it kind of is, but it's certainly much more than that.
Yep.
So in very layman's terms, tell us what Huntress does in regards to that product. It's very endpoint based, and when we say endpoint, this product goes on laptops and PCs and what have you. Again, we're an industry that loves acronyms, so we'll try and keep out of the acronym space as much as we can. But talk us through what that product does to protect practically and what have you, and what the company does, because there's more than just the product. There's a whole team of people. It's not just reliant on what is important for our clients is that this product, whilst Sean, you'll run through what it does, there is a big team of people looking at all the telemetry that comes through from this 24/7, which we interact with, which is a really important point, but I'll let you expand on that.
Yeah, so on the endpoint, so your workstations, your laptops, your servers, that's what you want to think about here. There's an agent that gets deployed. What we're looking for is behavior that's outside of the norm. So if there's certain things running or has gotten past of other security tools, so think of your AV as a security tool. So if something has gotten past that, because AV is not a silver bullet, what we're doing there is we're detecting that behavior and going, look, this looks outside of the norm. And then somebody in our security team that are people who are cybersecurity experts, they're ex-hackers, they're penetration testers. So they go and look at that behavior, look at the context of it and go, no, this is abnormal. This is a threat actor doing this. Let's get the threat actor out of this environment. So it's really making sure you don't see any anomalies in there or strange behavior that could lead to a compromise, right? This could be them installing tools that we have used as MSPs. So I think when Tom's team can remote into your computer, threat actors also want to do this. So if you click on a link, it can download some software that gives that threat actor the access that Tom's team has. We want to make sure that it's only Tom's team on there and not the threat actor.
Sean, just to touch on that, to an extent, the threat of the hackers putting viruses. I mean that it's still around, but that sort of threat is really not what people should be concerned about and what we're concerned about. It's really about people gaining access. There's a number of things, but people,
Correct.
these hackers gaining access to a machine and laying dormant what
Yes.
otherwise would look dormant, but they're monitoring emails and activity, collecting telemetry, collecting communication styles, and I don't want to get too scary, but this stuff does occur. So they're not really looking for the old let's get a virus on them or even
No.
or even encrypt files anymore, are they?
No, they're looking to do the most damage or looking for information that they can either breach your partners. So they're looking for an email where you're talking about invoices or something like that, and they're trying to adjust that invoice so they take the money instead. Or they're looking for your data and your client data, so then they can either leak that or they can threaten to leak that so that you go ahead and pay them. So they're actually trying to sit there for a period of time to collect the most amount of information to do the most financial damage they can immediately. And this isn't hey, scary, they're trying to steal your money. This is more, they're trying to gather this information so they can make the biggest impact for them without having to do the most amount of work.
And practically speaking, what we've occurred, and luckily, and obviously this could occur from people accidentally being tricked from phishing emails and clicking on things or taking phone calls from people they shouldn't be, or what have you. We have had instances where people have done that, and Huntress have stepped in immediately at 2 a.m. or whatever time it is,
Yep.
and isolated what we refer to as the host or the end computer, or whether it's a server. And then there's steps, humans behind this to do it. So we're very, very lucky, and it's an amazing product. And just before we move on to the current threat landscape and what we're talking about today, the team at Huntress was started by a guy that is at the forefront of all this and continues to be, and then of course backed up by a massive team across the world. And we've noticed, and one of the reasons, apart from the great relationship that we have with the organisation and the team, is that any of the big cyber events that occur, Huntress are generally at the forefront of, particularly if what we call a zero-day threat. So it wasn't a threat yesterday, is right now, and it's active in the business world. They're always at the forefront, and helping the industry as a whole. So fantastic. What I do want to get to is this AITM, again, acronym. Tell me what it is, what the threat is, because it's real and happening. We've got situations with the federal government getting telemetry on these exact attacks, which the current tool set up until date really hasn't been able to stop, but you're about to tell us how and why that can be stopped.
Yep.
And so tell us all about it.
Yep. So AITM, and apologies for more acronyms, but it's Adversary-in-the-Middle or Attacker in the Middle. So what they're trying to do is to get you to click on a phishing link. And what this does is it passes the information through their workstation or their server to the Microsoft page. So what they'll do is they'll sit in the middle. You'll click on the link. It actually gives you your Microsoft page, but as you start entering your credentials and you do multi-factor authentication, which is fantastic, but is not, once again, a silver bullet, what will happen is it'll actually pass it through the threat actor infrastructure and capture that MFA. It'll capture your username and it'll capture your password. So when you go to Microsoft's site and you log into your Microsoft 365, what happens is on your computer, you get referred to as what is a session token. And what that means is when you close your browser and you reopen your browser after lunch, you don't have to re-log in, because Microsoft has given you a token to say, hey, you can get back in. So imagine it's a token for a roller coaster that you can just keep using, right? What happens is that threat actor steals that token, takes a copy of it, and then they can plug it into their web browser. So Edge, Firefox, Chrome, all of these tools, They can plug it into theirs. Now they don't need your MFA, they don't need your username, and they don't need your password. At this point, what they're going to do is they're going to start reading your emails. They're trying to look for those invoice emails. They're trying to look for project emails. They're trying to get stuff that they can do damage with, because then they can send either your supplier or your client a new invoice with their banking details on it to say, hey, we've got new bank details. Can you please pay into this account? I think the key here is if you are a client and you work in the manufacturing, legal, conveyancing, or real estate space, you are a very, very high value target currently.
High number of invoices, lots of communication, dealing with people that are not used to this, and of course it's easy to intercept. Up until now, we've had, we refer to our security baselines as the All I.T security baselines, which is a whole suite of product, which Huntress is one of them. And there's a number of things that we have put in place, very stringent, based on the Essential 8 and the CIS controls, which is a set of security controls out of the United States. That's what our baseline covers. And there's been things in there to obviously multi-factor, but this particular case can bypass multi-factor, because we have seen that not only does that hacker steal the token and then has the session, but they then can they have access to that account. And because that token can expire, they then go in and create another multi-factor method. So put their mobile phone in or an authenticator app. They have access forever, none the wiser. Further to that, they're also, we have things in place, and our clients would be aware that if they have to travel, they have to let us know so that we can open up access to other countries. The hackers are now, this is how advanced and sophisticated they are. They're now, in one instance, looking at IP, having the same IP as that user, or getting an IP that is within the same region, same suburb as where these users are. So that's not obviously hard to work out. If you're a legal firm in Sydney or in a suburb of Sydney, say Linfield, your address is public. They can, most likely you're logging in from those things. So all the tools that we've had in place to date to look at risky users and impossible travel, because that's one of the methods. If you're constantly signing in from Linfield and you're a legal provider, and then all of a sudden you're signing in from Melbourne,
it's a bit weird.
That would pick that up. However, they're getting smarter and utilising similar IP sets and what have you. So it's, we've been talking about this in terms of the threat landscape, and it's, what we're noticing is the sophistication has amplified massively. Tell me, Sean, Huntress have got a relatively new product out, because obviously it's a relatively new space, this, in regards to, in addition to all the controls we put in place from a Microsoft level, but sits over the top of this, analysing all the sessions and a much higher degree. It's called ITDR. What's it stand for? What does it do?
So it's called Identity Threat Detection and Response, because your Microsoft 365 account is your identity, right? It's your email address. It's got a lot of your data in there. Even if it's your personal Microsoft 365 or it's your business 365, same kind of thing. It's your identity, right? That's what they're trying to capture. So what it does is it's looking at all the information that's going on in the background of Microsoft, and that's being analyzed by our threat hunting team. So these experts that we were talking about earlier, they're looking at it to go, oh, well, this person normally logs in from Sydney. Well, they're not logging in from Sydney right now, and they're actually using a different device, and it's not enrolled in Intune, and it's using a VPN, which is how they get those IPs. So there's multiple things we're looking at to understand the behavior, right? If somebody just gets up and travels overseas, we're going to alert Tom to it. But if there's no other, what we refer to as indicators of compromise, we're just going to go, oh, they just haven't told Tom's team that they are traveling, right? So we'll work with them to make sure you're okay. But what we're seeing is what we refer to as unwanted access. So unwanted access is one of the key features, and that's people logging in who are unwanted. So they could do this in multitude of ways: stealing the session token, finding your previously leaked credentials on things like Telegram and dodgy sites like that. So just to push on it, don't reuse passwords, because your password has been leaked at some point. You can go on a website, have I been pwned, if you would
100%.
like to. Yeah, it's out there, so we don't want to reuse passwords. That's one way they're doing it. But once they've done that, they're going to go ahead and do damage. So we've seen with unwanted access in the last 3 months, we've seen over 1,000 critical reports that we've sent to people like Tom to say, hey, this is unwanted access. At that point, where he mentioned isolating the endpoint previously, we can now do that with your Microsoft 365. So what this means is we will log out every single device. We'll expire all those session tokens we were talking about so they don't work anymore. And then we'll actually lock your account at the Microsoft 365 level to make sure you're protected at 2 in the morning. Because they're not attacking you at midday. They're attacking you at 2 in the morning, right? So that way Tom's team can come in. They can make sure they can work with us, that we make sure if they've put in extra MFA, that we get that out of there. If they've tried to add themselves to a group, we've got them out of there. If they've tried to make themselves an admin, we can remove those rights. So all of these things we'll work through with Tom's team to make sure you're clear. Reset your password, because as we discussed, they would have already captured your password. We'll reset that password and then the account will unlock. So there's a whole kind of stage to it. But on the Adversary-in-the-Middle, of those over 1,000 reports in the last 3 months, we thought it would be about 10% of the detections. We were anticipating about in there. It's actually at 44% of the detections. This is the biggest attack. The ASD's newest cyber report says email compromise resulting in no financial loss is 20% of the self-reported cyber crimes for small to medium businesses. Right, so...
And I keep saying, Sean, that, people say to me, oh, well, it only happens to the big guys. If you're a small business and this occurs, you don't really go out and shout it from the rooftops and tell everyone you've been hacked. So this is happening. We see it, and obviously we see it all the time. You see it all the time. So it is happening. So this product, if you're a current client of ours, this is a new product from Huntress. We will be in touch in regards to this. I think value for money, and we'll communicate pricing on this. But for value for money, this is probably one of the most forward pieces of technology for the price. It's incredible. So we're strong. We'll be strongly recommending this. Just outside of this, and just to touch on it, but I'll include in this conversation, there is also further talk, and it doesn't revolve around Huntress, but happy for you to chip in, Sean. We will be recommending organisations, and we already have some organisations that go down the path of what we call full device compliance. And what that means is if you've got a Microsoft login or a Google login, you can essentially, everyone likes convenience, but you can log in to that account from anywhere in the world, and as can your guest users, to any device. If you're in New York and you needed to log in, you can do that. And if you pass MFA, you can do those things. Now, that's hugely risky. So how can we not only use products like the ITDR from Huntress, but how can we, one of the first things is how do we lock things down to stop this also before it even happens? And that is only having users log in to registered devices, which we call device compliance. And it's a big thing that we're talking to clients around. I do caveat that it is a huge pain in the because we've got to, people can't just do what they want, and we've got to register everyone's phones, we've got to register the devices and then lock that down. So it's quite a lot of management and a cost around it, but for highly regulated industries, it's the only way to go. And of course, the other thing on top of all of this, which of course Huntress also supplies, which is what we call SAT, security awareness training, which, the user, if educated, is the first line of defence.
Yeah.
Most of this stuff is coming from people clicking on links or, well-crafted emails, or WhatsApp messages are big ones. They're getting someone to do something at a vulnerable time. This time, we're heading into this time of the year where we see a large uptick because there's lots of communication about different things, getting you to log in. We all use single sign-on for things. So, you'll log into an app and say, do you want to use your Microsoft credentials? That's another way these hackers are doing things. We see an uptick at this time of the year on weekends when people are out and obviously you get something at the right time and they've had a few drinks at a Christmas party or what have you, and you're vulnerable. I know it sounds silly, but
yeah,
the numbers don't lie. So that's another thing, isn't it, Sean? To this device compliance, it's nothing against Huntress, but there's a number of things you've got to do, and it's not just Huntress and it's not just All I.T, but it's you've got to do a number of things. There's not a silver bullet in any of this.
No, security and layers is the best thing we preach, right? I've always said, like, your identity or your workstation or your phone is a slice of Swiss cheese, right? And as you add things like device compliance, a Huntress, an AV, it's another slice of Swiss cheese, which covers part of the holes. Next one covers part of the holes. Firewalls cover another part of the holes. The more that you have, eventually you end up with a whole block of cheese, right? And that's going to be a lot harder to shoot through. So having device compliance is, I think, key to me, because then look, we know it's coming from this computer. They cannot use another computer because Microsoft's just going to outright reject it as soon as that computer doesn't match. Now, we in IT, we understand how this causes friction for you in your job, but you've got to go back the other way a little. We can open up our multi-factor authentication devices and show you how many times we have to log in as IT people, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
We understand that it's annoying. It annoys us, right? But we're
most
doing
of the
it.
Things, most of the things that are put in place. There's a few things, there's a new technology, which is probably for another day, but in terms of pass keys that Microsoft are doing to aid in all of this. And one of the byproducts of putting that in place is a little bit of ease for the end user, in terms of authenticating and what have you. So there's a few bits, Sean, that makes life easier, but on the whole, it doesn't make life easier.
No.
But that's what it is. And I'll just finalise on the compliance piece. We've got clients that are heavily regulated, and this is only going one way. The government's released a cybersecurity law passed on Wednesday. That's another conversation. And the compliance and the regulatory requirements for directors in companies are only going one way, and it's more. And I just on a final note, we do take the approach that businesses will get breached at some stage in some way, shape or form.
Yep.
And if you've got to go to clients and advise them, then there is already regulation in regards to the Privacy Act. If you're over a certain size, that you do have to notify clients if you have been breached, or if you've got requirements from suppliers, or, as I say, regulatory. If you've done all these things and put all these things in place, the journey from that point is a lot easier, because you can show that you've got a level of maturity and put things in place, and you did as much as possible in regards to that. And also, if you're laying claim to your cyber insurance as well, and also doing all of this stuff will lower premiums as well. So, look, finally, Sean, thanks for coming on. If you're a client or a future client or looking to become a client and you're interested, talk to us, talk to your relationship manager. They will be reaching out in regards to these things. Maybe I might leave it, Sean, and ask you one final question. Where's Huntress going? I know there's so much happening in your world.
Yeah.
And there's so much coming, and obviously some of it's confidential. But what's I suppose, 2025 hold for Huntress?
Well, we're looking for that compliance piece. We're looking at doing a managed SIM. Some people will know it as a SIEM, however you prefer to say it. So that will look at even more logs. So looking at your firewall side of things, looking at even more endpoint data for you. So meeting those compliance needs, and you'll start to see on your cyber insurance forms that they're starting to ask you to tick that box.
Yeah.
So that will be 2025 for us. It's a real key piece. We've made it so it works for the small to medium business, because SIM/SEAMs, most of them are not really working for small to medium business. If there's one thing I could leave you with for your clients, a real key thing that I find here is have, for all your suppliers and anybody who's sending you our invoices, have a playbook of phone numbers in it saved of the people you need to contact. Anytime you get an email asking you, hey, we've got new banking details, pay in here, go to your playbook for that supplier, call the person and ask them if their banking details have changed. This, along with Huntress, will, because there is the threat that your supplier could get done because they don't have a Huntress. If you've got this, number one, you will save them and they will be forever thankful to you, but you will also save yourself a ton of money. So it's something that they tried to catch us out with Huntress, but we have those playbooks to make sure that we know who we should contact, and that should just be your policy all the time. Change of bank details, go and call them, but don't call the number off the email because they also changed that. So just
hopefully don't get to that stage.
Yeah.
It's great information. Sean, really appreciate your time. Again, we appreciate all the work that Huntress does. They're a trusted partner of ours. And as are you and Reese and all the team internationally, we're hugely appreciative. Thanks for your time, and we'll have you on again soon to discuss. I mean, I would probably like to say we won't have you on again soon, because that means, there's no more threats, but it's only going one way. So we probably will be talking again in 2025.
No, definitely. And yeah, anything that your clients need, just reach out and we're always happy to help.
Awesome. Thanks,
Appreciate
Sean.
it.